How could this tiny little innocent post bring us to this? An in-game map as a third-party software, as an overlay in the game, telling you all of the mechanics of the boss, showing the position of all the players in the zone, etc, etc. These type of things were removed/blocked by Blizzard over a decade ago. We have gone through several years of Blizzard trying to limit the power of the add-ons when it came to basically showing too much, giving you too much information inside of the game. Warcraft Logs recently posted a little tidbit on using their software, their downloadable software, to put an overlay, an in-game overlay as a damage meter to show you the real damage of an augmentation evoker. So they said, hey guys, you can use this third-party software. This sparked some light bulbs in people's brains and realized you can actually do many things by using third-party softwares and using overlays in-game without breaking the terms of service, so basically without cheating. To know where this started, we have to actually take a trip down memory lane back when you guys were all in kindergarten, because we have to go back to like 13 years. We can go all the way back to the days of Wrath of the Lich King. We are now in ICECROWN, you are now progressing through ICECROWN, and a little add-on called AVR exists. What AVR is doing is reading the positions, is reading the coordinates of the players in-game through the API of Blizzard. They use the combat log. The combat log has a ton of data, and it also used to allow to read, for example, the player camera, the player positioning in the game, allowing you to draw a 3-dimensional space. The result was that essentially you could download an add-on that would allow you to basically paint in your game. The result was that you were able to draw circles, lines, arrows, and essentially trying to basically paint mechanics on the floor of encounters. You could divide them by phases, so you could be like, okay, this white circle is where we stack for this mechanic, and then I'm gonna draw an arrow to a blue circle, which is where we move when the boss is spawning adds, and then the red dots on the floor are where the adds are gonna spawn, etc, etc. That is what that add-on allowed you to do all the way back then. Blizzard, of course, went, no, stop this right now. So they restricted some of the API, some of the data, the info that you could draw from the combat log in-game, so that you could no longer use these type of add-ons. And since way back then, these type of add-ons were deprecated, they died, they were no longer usable in-game. Yes, you could still hack the game, you could still access that API in-game, like this, for example. This is just recent from Shadowlands, and it's against the terms of service now, and you can get banned for doing something like this, because Blizzard no longer wants to allow add-ons to draw positions, in particular coordinates of the players in-game, to be able to draw 3D mechanics like this one. However, over time, Blizzard still had to continue trying to prevent add-ons from reading too much about the data the combat log would be showing. This one, for example, is back from Archimond, back in Worlds of Draenor, back in Hellfire Citadel. This is the infamous Lines add-on from Archimond. As you can see, this add-on, this Wikora, was basically able to draw a map with the players and the lines that would be cast from Archimond. These lines would be passing through each and every player throughout the room, and with 20 lines on 20 players, it was going to be very hard to basically dodge them, to know where other lines were spawning from. So this add-on heavily trivialized the whole thing, because it allowed you to basically just see where the lines were coming from this little picture. And Blizzard further killed this ability in-game. Previously, it was to be able to draw coordinates in a 3D space. Now it's the coordinates at all. Now you can't have any sort of map, any sort of drawing being shown in-game based on your coordinates. And this mechanic right here, this boss right here, Archimond, was a big part in what pushed Blizzard to also remove that option. We continue down the line and we enter the next expansion, Legion, and we have now another problem. Have you wondered why after you install and you set up your nameplates, the names of the players, their health bar, the buffs and debuffs showing up on top of their heads, and then you wonder why as soon as you enter a dungeon or as soon as you enter a raid, those plates go back to looking like the old, outdated Blizzard version of the plates and not the ones you have installed? That's because Blizzard also killed that feature. This is from Legion, this is from Star Augur Atreus, and this was another add-on which allowed to trivialize an entire mechanic. If you remember, just a few months ago, in Shadowlands we had Anduin. The Anduin fight where you had to play match. You had to pair with other players based on the mark on your head. And if you failed, everyone died. Well, back in Legion you had a similar mechanic, if anything even harder, because you can have upwards of 3 different marks where players had to match themselves or just die if they walked on top of a different mark or another player without a mark. And this add-on allowed the raid to show a mark, the color of the mark on top of every player's head. And you wonder, wow, this would have made the Anduin mechanic super easy with this add-on. Why didn't we have this for Anduin? We don't have this for Anduin because Blizzard has disabled this feature in-game. You cannot have anything showing up attached to your nameplates anymore. Also, partially because of this, because it restricts the type of mechanics Blizzard can throw at you in a raid if you can have add-ons that can trivialize them to this degree. However, when I say, and why I say the opening of a can of worms is because now Warcraft Logs has shown everyone that you can kind of still do all of these things that have since been blocked by Blizzard in-game in a third-party software without having to access the client of the game, without having to break into restricted API in-game, breaking the terms of service and getting you banned. Instead, you can do it outside of the game and then put an overlay on top of your WoW client. For example, we have gotten a couple of show-offs right now. This one is an aura overlay on Neltharion. What you see right here that is happening is the list of the players with hearts in this fight. Maybe you haven't played Neltharion or maybe you haven't played it in Mythic, but one of the hardest parts to progress through in this fight is being able to properly place the volcanic hearts throughout the room. Because we don't have in-game a way to properly read anymore, to properly read the coordinates of the players, because we don't have a way anymore to draw on the floor of the encounter circles and lines and whatnot like we could in the past, there was no clear, definitive way in how to deal with this mechanic. The best way that we have right now is to have yourself show a map like this one, and then you have a list of players that you can write down, and then you can see the debuffs showing up on those players, and you're like, okay, player number 1 on this list is heart number 1. Player number 2 on this list with the heart debuff is in position number 2. Player number 3 on the list with the heart is gonna go to position number 3, etc, etc, etc. What you see here though is an overlay from a third-party software which allows you to show at the same time the volcanic heart plus the position of the player all at once, bypassing the restriction of the API put on by Blizzard in-game, because you are reading features from the advanced combat logs which would be able to be, for example, read by Warcraft Logs when you put them up on the site. Now you can do the same, except you can also now put them instantly in-game as an overlay, because this data is refreshed very fast. It's refreshed something like 3 times per second in a raid, so you are able to get data very, very quickly. There is no delay, really. And you can see the lack of delay in an even further, an even more detailed third-party overlay, for example, for Khazara. This one is able to straight up draw the entire map of the fight of Khazara. Not only that, but also it's able to show, for example, players targeted by the pools, that will have to be spawned, and then leave circles on the map to where the pools are. So players that are now targeted by the lasers know where they have to go with the 3 different pools. They can see where the other players targeted by the lasers are moving towards those pools, etc, etc. That's all visible on this overlay being put on top of your client. That's what I mean by kind of worms, because at the moment none of this, for the record, if you are curious, none of this is against the terms of service. You are reading the advanced combat logs just like Warcraft logs is. If you have, for example, the Warcraft logs updater that you use to update your logs, this type of feature can be done exactly like that. That you can just read the advanced combat log from a third-party software and then draw and then create a script, a software yourself to have these type of features as an overlay. None of this is breaking the law, so to speak. That's why we will have to likely hear a response from Blizzard on this matter quite soon, before Season 3 releases. Now, as for a solution to this, the most likely one is that Blizzard will be staggering the live updates of the data from the combat log. Basically, if you just delay this by 5 seconds, for example, if you just delay the transmission of the data in-game by 5 or 10 seconds, then what you can see in real time with these overlays would be mostly useless, right? What's the point in seeing the Volcanic Hearts targets on Eltarion if they have a 5-second delay? What's the point of seeing who is being targeted by the lasers on Khazara if they are being shown on this overlay 10 seconds later, right? It becomes kind of useless. So that is likely what might be the easiest solution to stop this new trend, this new growing trend of reading the combat log and then putting that data on top of overlays in your game. Just delay the transmission of the data so that you can have very up-to-date info about the in-game situation. It is still though quite an interesting progression from where we started like 13 years ago with these types of problematic add-ons, so to speak. We will see how will Blizzard deal with them in the near future. For now, we haven't gotten any news on the matter. I guess we will have to wait and see how will Blizzard go around at dealing with them. But for now though, this is all we have for today, for this Saturday, I believe. Now, with this thing out of the way, it's time now to leave each other. Thank you guys, of course, to all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and help to the growth of the channel, which can still be given, of course, for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, well, I needed to think about this beforehand, because now I actually don't have anything to say, and it's gonna look dumb. Damn it.